When this guy spots a group of goblins drinking water, he doesn't hurry to assault them with his fists or some kind of weapon. Instead, he utilizes his talent and opens his inventory to pull out something like a Pokemon ball to call his own goblin slave. Then he throws it right at them. Unfortunately, it falls short and drops to the ground before even reaching the goal. That's not how it's meant to work, and it startles the goblins just as much as it startles our lad. They swiftly notice our MC and hurry to murder him. He has no choice but to use his fists after all, but it soon becomes evident that the goblins are going to kill him. Luckily, the summoning works after a brief delay, and the goblin slave saves him at the last moment. The other goblins don't stand a chance. He murders them savagely, leaving nothing but a slaughter behind. After the triumph, the goblin slave becomes even stronger and boosts all his stats. Yet this goblin slave is simply the starting step. Our youngster has many more summons to unlock, but to achieve that, he has to fight a lot more monsters. Though that's not an issue at all, because what could be more fun than defeating monsters with other monsters, right? But just a short while ago, everyone thought he was a complete loser with little prospect of ever becoming a hunter. It's the proudest day for any graduating hunter, and our child is no exception. At the Hunter Association Stadium, he finally walks onto the platform to get his highly desired hunter license, having officially graduated as an E-rank hunter. This youth is full of ambition, having worked his ass out to reach this place. You see, he is an awakener of the lowest rank, meaning he was born into this world playing on hard difficulty. He essentially had to study twice as much as an ordinary awakener merely to overcome the gap created by his subpar rank. However, pounding the books hard did help him acquire so much knowledge about dungeons and monsters that he presently sits at the peak of theory, leaving even the most blessed awakeners in the dust. So in this moment, he feels a deep sense of pride. At long last, he's being awarded the honor of becoming a true hunter. Unfortunately, the chilly and nasty attendant delivering the certificates wrecks everything. That pompous man practically tears his certificate in two, arguing that being an E-rank hunter is worthless. Hanul might have been granted the title, but he can't function as an official hunter with such a dismal standing. All the theoretical and tactical knowledge he knows is utterly pointless if he doesn't have a high rank to back it up. Simply said, all his efforts thus far has been a futile struggle. Crushed by this reality, Hanul eventually gives up on his dream of hunting monsters. He escapes into gaming to distract himself, but even after 7 years, he can't fully let it go. After all, without a firm career, he's leading an aimless life, unsure of how to make a proper living. Right now, his only road forward is playing video games full-time. He has grown infatuated with a game called Monsters Block Monsters, also dubbed MBM. As the name says, you combat monsters with other monsters. Out of many species, players are given the option to recruit and harness their unit's ability to push back hostile waves in this deadly tower defense game. On paper, the mechanics sound simple, yet they are anything but simple. If you've ever played something like Bloons TD5, then you know what I'm talking about. This game demands rock-solid, rocket science-level placement techniques and ideal approaches to drive each unit to its ultimate limit. It allows you to upgrade creatures, but the progression is agonizingly slow. Even if you manage to grind your ass off and upgrade units important to your strategy, their levels reset completely if they fall in battle. Permadeath is real here. There is simply no method to restore the stats of a deceased creature. While these punishing mechanics make the gameplay fascinating, they've also drawn a ton of hate, earning it the reputation of being a historically trash game. For instance, the game really permits you to knock down a gorgeous 3-star ogre using just a 1-star goblin, provided your plan is flawless. But as they say, one man's garbage game is another man's treasure. Hanul actually earns a solid living by live streaming this game, since his acute critical thinking helps him to beat it with ease. Consequently, he's gained the title of a hardened veteran among its community, Monsters Block. Monsters has been his only lifeline since his hunter career crashed. Unfortunately, he won't be able to pursue this road much longer, as this will be his last day playing this game. After all, the game developers are shutting it down. Keyboard warriors on the internet are criticizing him, and his loyal community is left wondering what he'll do next. They think he must have a valid hunter license, assuming it's no big deal if he loses his streaming gig. The ugly reality is that he isn't a working hunter. a knowledge that stings terribly, although he refrains from expressing this essential detail publicly. Brushing off his fears, he chooses to play to his heart's content, given it's his last day on the server. A special event is presently going place in-game, simply called as the Wave. The idea is clear: protect your fortress from infinite armies of monsters streaming out of a gateway. The wave this veteran is about to battle is the 700th, named Uncharted Territory. Up until now, no one has been competent or lucky enough to accomplish this milestone, making Hanul both excited and frightened. He launches the game, and a vast swarm of monsters begins spawning from the primordial gate. As the overwhelming beast horde pushes forward, he deploys his level 100 archer to lessen the herd. However, a single archer isn't quite enough against that swarm, and ends up getting slaughtered. It's a tragic loss. Still, he hasn't lost hope. The next troop to step up to the plate is his level 130 succubus queen. Tragically, she too becomes meal for a gigantic three-headed hound. One by one, he loses all his high-ranking units, eventually leaving his defenses entirely dry. Just when all hope appears lost, the game throws a major curveball. Challenging the 700th wave for the first time has triggered a rare condition, allowing a character dubbed Sovereign to awaken and step onto the battlefield. The Sovereign is a majestic blue-haired sword knight with an undetermined gender. Hanul is astonished by this unexpected turn of events. Usually, Sovereigns are essentially NPCs. They aren't supposed to make a move. As the horde of monsters lunges forward, this divine beauty stands directly over the castle's gate, absolutely unmoved. Drawing her sword, the Sovereign swings it with lethal grace, leaving a trail of heavenly light that slices through the monsters like they are playing a fucked-up version of Fruit Ninja. Even Hanul, who has played this game thousands of times, is totally enthralled by the character's tremendous strength. Another wave of creatures barrels toward them. They soar into the air and unleash another arcane flash of light, devastating the enemy ranks. They continue to bash the monsters until eventually all that remains are vast piles of corpses. Much to our boy's shock, this marks the formal completion of the 700th wave. For his whole streaming career, he believed Sovereigns had no use other than looking nice in the background. But this is completely insane. This Sovereign is a literal cheat code. Suddenly, he realizes there aren't any viewers remaining to applaud this incredible achievement. His feed had broken, leaving only a solitary viewer in the conversation. This mystery spectator starts expressing sincere gratitude for the effort Hanul put into conquering the planet. The commenter rejoices, claiming that thanks to Hanul, they would finally be able to live in harmony as he helped awaken their lord. Hanul has no notion what the hell this individual is babbling about. Things further become weirder when an arcane portal suddenly rips open in his room and a holographic system window materializes, stating he has awoken a new skill. The suggestion of a new skill sparks a memory of his previous teachers. They used to say that while E-rankers are normally incapable of surviving dungeons, a lucky handful sometimes acquire additional skills later in life. It's exceedingly rare, which is why this phenomena is known as reawakening. Realizing he's been handed a second chance, Hanul decides to capitalize on the occasion. He is tremendously pumped up to make his spectacular premiere as a hunter once again. However, despite his reawakening, his main status pane displays no evidence of alteration, a point that leaves him immensely intrigued. His hope is rekindled as a secondary message pops up, allowing him access to the details of his new skill. The summary gives him with two possibilities. He can negotiate a bargain with the Sovereign or converse with the Sovereign. Having no concept what either actually means, he blindly picks one. He selects deal with the Sovereign, although right before the skill activates, a bright red alert alerts him that he lacks the required goal to trigger the condition. Hanul feels totally frustrated. Just when he felt he was one step closer to his ambition, he's hurled 2 steps back. The faint illumination of his monitor prompts another notion. He chooses to investigate the only spectator who was yapping all that strange gibberish earlier. As soon as he boots his feed back up, the viewer pops straight back online. For simplicity's sake, let's simply name this unknown individual Viewer 1. After locking the broadcast to guarantee it remains a purely one-on-one chat, Hanul starts to fire off the frightening questions he desperately needs answered. Since this user emerged at the exact moment his reawakening happened, Hanul is certain they possess the answers. Without skirting around the bush, he straight up asks Viewer 1 if they know anything about his reawakening. Much to his shock, the viewer confirms it. Hanul always knew awakening was an event utterly beyond human control. Could it be that the thing on the other side of the screen is responsible for helping him reawaken? He follows up by questioning why this sudden occurrence transpired. After all, why would an unknown creature bother interfering simply to provide a washed-up game or a second shot? The mystery thing merely replies that the sovereign has chosen him, and that's all there is to it. As for why the Lord is offering this huge favor, it's purely because Hanul was the catalyst who roused their Lord in the first place. The thing reassures him that the heavy cloud of confusion currently muddling his mind will gradually disperse with time. As for the newly acquired skills, Hanul should merely consider them a symbol of their Lord's heartfelt gratitude. Hanul drops the interrogation, now purely focused on figuring out how to truly exploit these new gifts. The skill titled Conversation with the Sovereign has a cooldown, meaning he has to wait before activating it. He admits that, but he demands to know why the other skill is currently hidden behind a barrier. The unknown entity suddenly recognizes its omission and instantly rectifies the mistake by directly sending 50 gold into Hanul's system wallet. Now flush with the requisite cash, Hanul can finally test his talents to his heart's content and fit the puzzle together at his own time. With its task accomplished, the entity bids him farewell and logs off the stream. Hanul is utterly lost. He even tries pinching himself just to be sure he isn't locked in some ridiculous hyper-realistic fantasy. Regardless, one thing is clearly certain: this reawakening isn't just a random happenstance. This mystery creature known as the Lord is directly behind it. Suddenly, a system message beeps, alerting him to a 50 gold deposit. This newly obtained currency ultimately permits him to use his skill, Deal with the Sovereign. Instantly, a gigantic digital storefront materializes directly in front of him, displaying a long list of monsters available for purchase. Looking at his wallet, the only unit he can currently afford with his pitiful 50 gold is a slave goblin. Everything else is extremely pricey. The most costly figure on the roster is the Sovereign themselves, having an asking price of 11 digits, a bafflingly long string of numbers that hurts his brain just looking at it. Naturally, our child would love to add her to his arsenal, but the sheer cost is astonishing. However, it isn't the talent itself that impresses him. It's the fact that this system window looks identical to the one in his game. The tiny holographic projections of the monsters, spinning next to their price tags, are virtually a one-to-one duplicate of Monsters Block Monsters, with only a few subtle variations. Since the game mechanics allowed him to call the units he possessed, Hanul deduces that it should work the exact same way in reality. A snarky sneer creeps upon his face. He doesn't need to be physically powerful to be a top-tier hunter. He can just have his summons do the tough lifting. Speaking of riches, a realization hits him. In MBM, players had two ways to line their wallets: clearing dungeons or hunting monsters and selling the loot. Applying those gaming rules to reality, he believes he needs to murder some creatures to farm the gold he sorely needs. The evident issue, however, is that his current physical stats are lying at rock bottom, considerably too low to even hunt a lowest-grade slime, let alone anything deadly. Left with no other options, he confirms the purchase for the slave goblin. A blue Pokeball consisting of his slave goblin materializes in reality. The scene switches to the bustling Hunter Association building. Hanul is here to officially register himself as a lone E-rank hunter. After the receptionist pulls up his new record, she finds 4 available jobs fit for a novice of his level. Hanul carefully evaluates the possibilities and purposefully picks the one that seems the least fit for his poor physical ability: a goblin elimination expedition in a distant village among the mountains. The attendant swiftly tells him that the designated region is absolutely out of reach for emergency relief. If crap hits the fan, he will be utterly on his own. But it is exactly what our boy desires. The last thing he wants right now is to attract unwelcome attention. While experiencing a sense of sadness for someone so young potentially throwing his life away, the attendant changes his status. Following biometric authentication, the registration process complete, and she promises to send him the pertinent mission details. Hanul is cleared for deployment and nearly vibrating with anticipation for his debut. Upon eventually reaching the isolated village, the client who issued the contract comes running out to meet him. The old man is tremendously happy that a brave hunter actually accepted his request. After all, very few awakeners would volunteer to journey all the way out here for such a meager payment. Even yet, the senior looks unconvinced that a small boy like Hanul can handle those awful animals alone. He really concerns for our boy's safety. Appreciating the elderly man's earnestness, Hanul flashes a confident smile and reassures him that he won't allow those disgusting monsters taint the village any longer. Venturing deep into the woodland where the goblin nest is purportedly located, Hanul stumbles upon a somewhat surprising sight. Instead than acting like ragged beings driven by primordial instincts, this bunch of goblins is calmly chilling by a stream, drinking water like regular folks. Brushing off the weirdness, Hanul opens his inventory and pulls out his freshly acquired familiar, which is now resting in its blue blob state. Channeling his inner Pokemon trainer, he throws the blue Pokeball with blazing speed toward the beasts. The sphere lands right in front of the shocked goblins. For a tense second, absolutely nothing happens. Hanul finds himself in really hot water. His Pokeball seemingly failed to deploy. Realizing the person standing before them is hostile, the goblins instantly bare their sharp claws and close the distance, preparing to cut him to shreds. Knowing he has no other choice, Hanul braces himself to battle barehanded. Instead of leaving, he balls up his fist, ready to unleash a desperate counterpunch. However, just as a green danger is ready to sink its claws into him, the system finally triggers. The goblin summon makes a badass, explosive entry, materializing out of thin air and ruthlessly knocking the hostile creature away with a big club. Channeling his summon up close makes something click in Hanul's thoughts. When he first started streaming MBM, the very first creature he obtained was a normal slave goblin. Over time, he had outfitted that poor minion with god-tier gear, transforming the trash-tier creature into an utter chad that soloed 100 waves of terrible creatures fully unsupported. He had dubbed the goblin Gono. Looking at the familiar stats, it becomes blatantly evident. This beast is rocking the exact same top-of-the-line A-rank equipment Hanul had grinded for. This strengthens his belief. This is his Gono, brought to life. Gono gets totally batshit mad, literally tearing the two frontline goblins limb from limb. The third and final goblin, with its last few surviving brain cells, turns and bolts in the opposite direction. Unfortunately for the fleeing monster, Gono is outfitted with Raven's wing-beat shoes. Moving like a true bolt of lightning, the familiar zips across the clearing and splits the final goblin into pieces before it can even scream. Hanul is left standing there, with his jaw almost stuck to the floor. He never completely comprehended how terrifyingly strong Gono was in an actual context. With the threat neutralized, the blood-soaked familiar trots back to his master, producing an unexpectedly cute puppy dog expression as he insists on a head pat for a job well done. Once again, Hanul is left dumbfounded. He never anticipated to experience this healthy side of a monster's personality. The device rings, telling him that Gono's adoration level currently stands at 20 out of 100. It further states that obtaining maximum devotion would unlock a completely new talent. The generally pragmatic gamer, who was earlier afraid to even touch his summon, suddenly drops to his knees and hugs the goblin like he is his long-lost sibling from another mother. Back to the main agenda. Hanul detects a glaring flaw. The corpses haven't dropped a single item of loot. How is he expected to farm gold? Thankfully, Gono already has everything worked out. The familiar rushes from corpse to corpse, plunging his hands into their chests to harvest their life essence, which takes the form of faintly glowing monostones. A vortex of magical blue energy materializes nearby, and Gono nonchalantly tosses the stones in. In exchange for the 3 low-grade cores, the Lord's Castle of Illusion promptly transfers 30 gold into Hanul's account. It all makes sense now. Instead of monsters dropping tangible currency, he has to remove their mana stones and exchange them via the system. Hanul showers Gono with additional affection for figuring out the mechanics so soon. Now that the gold is collected, he prepares to acquire physical confirmation of the quest's fulfillment for the association. But it seems the 3 goblins were simply the appetizer. A sudden, tremendous disturbance erupts from the depths of the jungle, demanding their attention. With each passing second, the earth-rattling thuds intensify. Trees are ruthlessly crushed and crunched into splinters as a massive behemoth makes its grand appearance. It's an ogre. Hanul quickly starts rethinking his life choices. An ogre of this gigantic size is absolutely supposed to spawn in B-rank gates or higher. It makes absolutely no sense for it to be strolling around an E-rank quest zone. However, a noticeable element catches his eye. The monster is severely panting and covered in fresh gashes. It has clearly already been in a severe combat. Still, injuries are no excuse to overlook a boss-level danger. To make matters exponentially worse, a system alert displays red. Gono only has 3 minutes remaining until this summon duration expires. The devoted familiar marches forward, fully undisturbed by an opponent double his size. Gono shoots his master a confident glance, softly begging for his trust. Activating his raven's wingbeat shoes, the goblin launches into a high-speed dash straight toward the towering beast. The giant roars, swinging a large, uprooted tree trunk like a baseball bat to swat away the invading vermin. But Gono is devastatingly quick on his feet. He leaps high into the air, taking a mid-air stance to enhance his momentum to the ultimate limit. He drops like a goddamn meteor, aiming his club precisely for the ogre's skull. The ogre desperately throws its gigantic arms up to guard its vitals. Gono doesn't let up. The huge strain suddenly becomes too much for the beast to endure, resulting in a horrible crunch as its arm bones crack and its ribs cave in. Pushing his augmented strength even further, Gono unleashes a shockwave that sends thundering ripples through the trees, forcing Hanul to skid backward, barely to keep upright. Ultimately, the monster is entirely crushed by the tremendous physical energy. Hanul is totally shocked by this incredible display of raw might, running over to celebrate the triumph with a happy little dance. With barely 3 seconds remaining on the clock before he vanishes, Gono frantically pulls the enormous mana stone from the ogre's chest and offers it up. The familiar then disappears back into his blue orb form, leaving Hanul holding a chunky, high-quality core. The arcane portal reappears to grab the prize. Tossing the low intermediate mana stone inside wins him a big 100 gold deposit, boosting his current haul to a comfortable 130 gold. It seems the system has one more surprise in store. As this is his first legitimate monster takedown, Hanul gets rewarded with a premium gacha ticket. This ticket allows players to roll for incredibly uncommon things, though any veteran knows the drop rates are usually total rubbish. Activating the ticket allows an elegant box full of unknown delights to emerge before him. A intriguing reality is exposed by the system. The god-tier gear he grabs from the gacha isn't just for his summoning. He can actually equip the things himself to increase his own rock-bottom stats. Before he can celebrate his newfound potential, the sound of snapping trees alerts him to oncoming company. A fully armed party of awakeners rushes into the clearing, clearly chasing the trail of the wounded ogre. The trail does indeed bring them right to their goal, but the trouble is, it's already dead. As soon as Hanul gets a clear glance at the squad, his heart sinks with dread. He instantly knows the woman leading the group, Yoon Sua, the fearsome captain of Team 2 from the elite Pungbak Guild. It's instantly evident that her squad had been the ones fighting the ogre earlier, whittling it down before it left. Dealing with a high-ranking guild over a stolen kill is never going to be easy. Hanul tries to silently hightail it out of the area, but Sua barks at him to freeze. Her crew swiftly fans out and surrounds him. After properly introducing herself, she angrily emphasizes that the abnormal ogre was their targeted prey. She is plainly happy with neither the situation nor the fact that someone else seemingly sniped their kill. It's an exceedingly tense scenario for our son. Sua peers at the fallen ogre, wondering just how this gentleman managed to defeat the monster alone, even if they had been wounded in the struggle. 3 of them as B ranks were trying their utmost to defeat and couldn't, and judging from this knowledge, she thinks that this guy must at least be an A rank. Reacting accordingly, she extends her hand, introduces herself as Sua from the Pungbak Guild. The baddie wants to see what kind of guy she's dealing with, but Hanul reacts calmly with an introduction of his own. The astonishing element is that Sua can sense that an archangel is truly interested in the person standing in front of her. This bothers her, and she just can't get a finger on what makes this simple-looking person so unique. Curious about his powers, she asks Hanul if he hunted the beast alone. He vaguely answers, acknowledging that he did. This puts her on edge, making her question whether this person is hiding something. She then adds that they were the ones engaged in the ogre's previous battle, and how she's delighted that he managed to halt the monster before any damage could be committed. Our boy nonchalantly responds by saying that he got lucky, but Sua understands that he's spouting nonsense because an ogre can't be killed by chance alone. Now she's entirely distrustful of him, and to react accordingly, she agrees to hand over all of the payoff prize to the ogre they were chasing. Basically, the Pungbak Guild will personally seek out to Hunter Hanul for his role and deal him the cash. This is a stunning favor even for Hanul, who can't believe that they're being too polite by handing away their own prey. Since she adds a return condition, a question that she's been meaning to ask. Of course, our boy understood that the deal was too amazing to come for free, but he's astonished when this girl casually extends her phone. Hilariously, Sua appears like a small girl trying to ask for her crush's number right now. Even she's uncomfortable while asking for his number, while our gigachad dense protagonist doesn't even realize what the heck is going on. The scene changes to our boy meeting with the peasant uncle, who is very appreciative to the hunter for saving their lives. Hanul is just delighted that he cleared a safe passage for them up the mountain, and learns how these peasants have had it difficult. The boss wants to reimburse him. The offer comes in handy because Hanul is particularly keen to discover about the location of the famous training monument landmark. The old guy walks him along a route straight down, assuring him that he'll find it at the end, and that the same path inspires good luck. Hanul is in an optimistic attitude even if he doesn't believe in superstitions. This is also where he manifests the prize chest for the gacha pull. Basically, Guy wants to optimize his luck before he opens up the famed chest, hoping that something nice may come out of it. His phone rings. It's actually Sua again, who writes him to arrange a reward for the kill. He's honestly pretty astonished that she's taking considerable interest in him. The really odd thing is that she's even using her personal phone number instead of their guild. Regardless, Hanul isn't a simp and cares only about unlocking the treasure chest right now, one he'd never imagined he'd open in real life. Even if the drop rates on this thing are absolutely dogshit, he's okay for having a chance to grab a high-rank item. Hanul doesn't even ask for much, merely begging for an A-rank pull, and Hanul chants open to activate the chest, letting off a shimmering light that manifests several different weapons from various ranks. The highest rank among them is the S rank, a blood crimson laced with golden armor. With the introduction concluded, the light glows a severe golden before transitioning into red. Our youngster rests his eyes on the pinnacle relic in admiration, while the scene ambiguously cuts off from his reward. Back at home, Hanul sits analyzing the current scenario. Though he's found a technique to gather gold, right now his hurdle is selecting to teach his monsters, not knowing what's the trouble with the system. On his current monster sheet, he can employ a goblin warrior, but to his horror, an ogre berserker is also available. A regular warrior goblin costs 70 gold, so that's not the issue. But the puzzling part is the berserker ogre, which costs a staggering 420 gold, and even though it's out of his league, it's still available for hiring. Suddenly it clicks in our boy's head. The system only permits him to hire creatures that he's personally killed. If the tale checks up, then it is logical why only the goblins and ogre classes are unlocked, despite the gold discrepancy. This means that Hanul personally has to hunt these monsters, and despite it looks like with his prior gacha pull, things appear believable. By the way, Bro didn't get that armor, and instead acquired unique grade glasses, enhancing his stats and granting him a skill. He's truly amazed that a unique grade item even came to him. The artifact is exceptional grade and is one of a kind. By the way, a unique grade item in the game is better than 3 or more A-rank things combined, giving it a great pull. With the spectacles, he decides to wear them to test their usage. Hanul checks them out for the first time and unlocks the Epstein files, the secrets. All of his stats are enhanced by 5, and an added skill called Sage's Eye is now accessible. This skill allows him to deduce details of his target's eyes and skills, with a usage of twice per day. Basically, it's like an appraisal or a scanning talent. Hanul is thrilled with his stat rise and appreciates the unique effect, calling it insane even. Checking the details of the skill, he wonders if he should use it on an adversary to test the information. But that aside, this kind of object is exactly the kind of thing he needs right now. If we can inspect the monster's exact stats, hunting will become a piece of cake. Taking them off, Hanul voices his worries about the glasses too, querying why he's being favored by the system all of a sudden. The mystery of why he got chosen is overwhelming him, when suddenly, the system zooms a warning in his face for the impending wave. He's instructed to ready his defenses as the system goes totally wild, blasting notification after notification as he watches in astonishment. Hanul checks the game's screen, and to his true terror, he discovers that an initial wave is going to commence in 10 minutes. Bro doesn't even know how to prepare his defenses for the damn wave. All he can imagine is the hellfire hordes of demons that are going to swarm him the instant that wave starts. This is like a level 1 thug battling the last boss. Bro is loosing his balls and wants to decline, fearing the outcome. The system stresses that his failure against the monster invasion will result in the loss of the Castle of Illusions, which means every single power he has available to him will collapse. Here comes the neat part. Hanul watches the future as he sees cities burning in the ultimate ruin of the earth. Failure is death. The wave is about to begin, and Bro is pondering how he's going to stop those nasty creatures. The blue gate swirls like a portal, mirroring the exact one from the game, but Hanul is baffled on why he's being compelled to play. Then there's the reality that his own participation results in a catastrophic world goes fuck all penalty. It's a pretty strange negative, but the system's concluded its round and will launch the wave in 10 minutes. Knowing that he can't overthink the current scenario and merely has to act, our child consolidates his purpose to halt the monsters. The game has always been a simple defensive game, with the purpose of keeping enemies from attacking the castle. Think of it like a tower defense game. However, due to this game's painful difficulty levels like Hollow Knight, planning is the essential ingredient needed to halt the monsters, and even summoning them in the precise paces. Several defensive buildings from the unified castle must be utilized alongside a variety of items. Cooperating with all of these aspects, the appropriate strategy and tactics for each situation is established. That's how the game works. Each control for our boy currently operates as a touchscreen. The first thing he does is check his monster inventory for the deployment. Apparently, Bro has 5 deployable monsters, 4 of which are goblins, and the remaining one is an ogre. This is an intriguing finding, because presumably Hanul may use these creatures without needing to hire them in this form. He wonders if he can also access the strength of the sovereign, but unfortunately, it's not accessible or doable. Perhaps he attempts to stack up on additional troops with the spending of his gold, but the system keeps him from doing that too, blocking any modifications after the wave notification. Bro's getting cooked and beginning to wonder whether this dang system is secretly sabotaging him. The 7-0 initial wave includes Count Gular, as well as his elite force of the Dragon Children. This dude is rated 6 entire stars with an additional army of 61 dragons. A 6-star monster is not looking good for a fight, and the rank also validates the potential of each monster. It's evident that if the disparity between stars is too big, one monster will get squashed by the other. The actual frightening part is him being forced to cope with a fucking 6-star with his tiny squad of 1-stars. No matter what he does, the consequence is evident. Bro's going to get annihilated by even a single dragon. Hanul doesn't even have gold or other monsters to support him in the strategy. Suddenly, the system offers him a unique bonus, giving him 1 defensive building and item that will be given to all his men. Now, you would think it's some kind of amazing aid, but our youngster is insulted at the fact that this system wants him to clean the stage like this. The situation may be ridiculous, but Hanul needs to make the best out of what he has, especially since he's the veteran of this godforsaken terrible game. He starts altering the environment, finding out a means to stop the wave from his experience. With only 8 minutes counting down, he blitzes as fast as he can, factoring all the numerous elements till the countdown hits 15 seconds. After his preparation, the clock strikes 0. Hanul is ready to confront the wave. The wave begins with the releasing fury of the wyverns, consuming the whole sky with their numbers. As their goal, they're targeting the tower or the castle in this scenario. The army is led by the Count. At the commencement of the wave, the wyverns are fiercely smashing the barrier, attempting their best to crack a gap. The mighty Count is annoyed at the sight of his beasts being incompetent. Several more wyverns gang up to break the reinforced structure. But this is all because to Hanul's cunning. The first thing he does is use the Limitless Barrier perk, strengthening the defenses to 100 against any attack. The Infinite Barrier is invincible, but it has an extra condition. It can only be employed when the number of monsters is below the 2-star rank for the player. Well, despite our boy's best attempts to cast the barrier, one wyvern blazingly unleashes its breath, delivering damage and obliterating the barrier. Thanks to its effects, the shield regenerates, and is the sole thing that keeps the barrier alive. There's one significant problem though it's true that the barrier regards each strike as -1 point. If all 61 dragons attack together, the durability would smash to less than half quickly. That's the loophole, but our boy's got a remedy for that too. It's called spam clicking. Bro is taking inspiration from Osu players. This method, the durability is raised by 1 per each click, making his own fingers his limitations to the barrier's healing process. Hanul's hand is starting to hurt, but it's the surest method to assure complete defense of the barrier. Next up is the major question. How the hell is he even able to defeat these godlike monsters? The answer is easy. The barrier reflects the attack of one of the wyverns, injuring it by 1 point. Normally goblins are incapable of hurting wyverns, but because to his magical artifact, the Hakan spoon, the conditions are reversed. This A-rank item permits our lad to deal harm regardless of rank discrepancy. The wyverns are starting to taper in strength, even if it only deals them 1 health loss. One of the monsters even notices this clumsy goblin poking fun of him, and despite all its wrath, the dragon can't accomplish anything at all. From the way everything is going, our boy is going to require around 60 complete hours to clear the whole horde. So now the difficult part is only restraining the barrier's recuperation process for 60 insane hours. The war of attrition begins as Hanel spams his finger, wondering if his goblins are going to die first or he will. The Count's soldiers are up against Hanel's as both offense and defense encounter a standstill. Sometime later, our guy is starting to become exhausted, and the instant he attempts to grab for water, Bro's entire body shakes coldly. The truth is, this man isn't even able to engage with anything outside the game. Long story short, Hanel has to suck it up and get no rest, no water, no food, no pooping, no gooning, no beating his meat, only to beat the game. With all his movements caught up, dude knows that the normal person would go nuts from sadness. But this individual is made differently and deems it the simple start of the game. One of the dragons erupts in cataclysmic anger and blasts off a colossal fire breath, chipping off the barrier by a lot. Being surrounded and feeling the rush is the very reason our youngster likes this game, as only 2 hours have just passed, with 58 more to play. The death penalty is far too high. The whole world will meet catastrophe. So Hanel goes gamer god mode and embraces entire control of the situation, pledging to fight harder. 12 tortuous hours rushed by, yet he's not even halfway there. The harm is eventually going to stack up, so sooner or later, things could be better. The goblins are progressively chipping away at the dragons. 2 wyverns collapse, but the remainder of the army remains. Still, Hanel is okay with this conclusion and merely wants to maintain this trajectory. 3 more creatures crumble. His spirit holds on. A day has gone, and he's only cleared 10, then 12, and when a couple more wyverns tried to penetrate the barrier, 2 half-drakes died in the process. The Count realized his numbers were collapsing. More wyverns began to die, as well as the half-drakes, and after a fucking wild run, only 2 Mozantars left. By this point, Hanel couldn't even touch the screen and was unable to reset the durability for the barrier. One of the goblins launches an assault, only for the wyvern to penetrate past it, before delivering a dual strike going right for the shield. This attack is the game changer. The infinite barrier is formally dissolved, waking Hanel's soul open. The few seconds he chose to rest is when the barrier became demolished, and if the castle gets even a single attack in its current condition, it will fall. However, Gano chooses to make the sacrificial play and heads right up to confront the dragon. I still think this is the greatest representation of any goblin. Bro looks like he could have a full manhwa about him. Anyway, the 2 are going to combat. Goblin against dragon. Gano's got his aura farming look and really pours his everything into shattering the monster's skull. His mace is so powerful that it stuns even our kid, slaying the dragon and even toppling the Count. With this, the wave is officially cleared, much to Hanel's shock. He cries in excitement, but before even breathing another second, Hanel collapses instantaneously. The next time he wakes up is when the sun is out bright. Bro didn't even know when he got cooked. He watches at the system screen, observing the clearance of the wave, earning him 20 wyvern bones, 10 drake scales, and 5 drake hearts. These are the goodies from the task, but he doesn't really know what he's going to use them for at all. The system then arrives to tell that 3 prerequisites are left until he can share a chat with the sovereign. A first prerequisite is to amass a playtime for 50 hours, and the second for defending successfully. Hanel doesn't even know the goal of the talk, let alone why the heck it is barred by 3 restrictions. Regardless, Bro is just thrilled that he's cleared 2 of them, so he'll soon be able to utilize the feature. Then comes the FIO reward, one he'll get for conquering the wave. The screen shines a dazzling light, blinding the room and stunning Hanel. At that moment, we get a view of his phone. Evidently, Bro got phoned 7 entire times by his admirer, Sua. Back at the Pungbek Guild, Sua's brother refuses to accept the issue. The same individual that is apparently an E rank managed to beat an ogre. Big Shaq from the NBA over here is tall as fuck, and he thinks our boy is a phony, but Sua emphasized that there's been whispers of Hanel's reawakening. Suyuk doesn't believe it for a bit, knowing that reawakenings are pretty damn unusual. At that time, they find the man of the hour, Hanul himself, racing as fast as he can for a talk. He realizes that they've been waiting for a while and apologizes for being unavailable. Even though bro is apologizing a shit ton, nevertheless, Suyuk still has a stick in his ass because the guy made his sister wait for 3 days. Sua hollers at her brother and orders him to stop. Meanwhile, our boy takes notice of their friendship. As for Hanul, she gives him an explanation regarding the ogre's benefits as well as the payment settlement. Our buddy wants to kick things off with the association report first, so they're led to the staff desk, where the receptionist receives Sua's personal witness, observing this guy knock down an ogre. She understands that no one else could have arrived, even if there isn't any tangible evidence. Suyuk, being that overprotective big brother, glares at the receptionist for even trying to question them, so she promptly folds. At the same time, she contends that a monster of the B rank level requires proper formal verification technique. What that implies is that they're going to be measuring our boy's metrics to determine if his narrative checks out. This is going to be done using a manometer, and that's an issue. You see, Sua recognizes that this guy has reawakened, but even she couldn't check his worried. She even vouches for him, so they employ a different verification method. But Hanul himself is pretty confident and swears to make the measurement immediately away. In the next scene, the manometer clears one of the members' numbers at D rank, and next up is our boy's time, so Sua is naturally apprehensive. Her brother believes this is the finest setting conceivable, since he wants to see the kind of potential Hanul has for stimulating the constellation's curiosity. If he doesn't have any ability, then he's not worthy of being acknowledged. Finally, our youngster places his palm on the enormous stone with nothing on him to aid raise his numbers. It's been a long time since he stood in front of one of them, and like other hunters, he too had his mana measured 7 years back. The manometer fires up to check his stats while his pal's waiting expectantly. Suyuk is drawn to a certain emotion when suddenly the manometer's measurement reaches completion. Hanul stands as the evaluation clears his new rank as a staggering S rank, a jaw-dropping insane turn of events that catches everyone's attention. The S-rank descriptor is something that not even Hanul himself had any notion of until he obtained the ultimate reward for the operation. You see, back then, he earned a new skill. It's called the Lord's Afterimage, which adds the strongest monster of the preceding wave stats to the player's stats. However, the stat is only accessible for 30 minutes and can only be used once per day. Basically, Bro can use Count Gular's numbers for the allowed time period, and that's what he did, buffing himself to insane levels. He obtained the perfect skill for the measurement, because while the skill is active, his powers are comparable to an S rank. No one can steal a thing. The world will simply consider him an S-rank rookie. Both siblings are surprised. Even Suyuk had to deliver a praise despite his hesitancy. With the measuring concluded, he is officially recognized as the person to defeat the ogre. One of the members informs him that it's everything they required. Hanul thanks the siblings for helping him progress the procedure successfully. He wants to head out straight away, but as he's leaving, Suyuk stops him for a discussion over coffee. He is inviting him as the vice guild leader also, so it's a huge invitation that captures the attention of everyone else. The individuals are fascinated in this development, only for our kid to be extra smug by refusing the offer, feeling that he just needs Sua for any information on the guild. Saying so, Hanul walks away from the scene, leaving her pissy brother at a loss for words. He arrives back home, and his face is all on the news. The stream has just started, with the Hunter Association classifying his current rank as B rank. By the way, this is because the association doesn't allow a hunter to lead more than 3 ranks at one time. Well, even his own feed is having some commenters spitting on the trash game. Bro plays it chilly and acts like he's not the one they're talking about. The audience are going crazy for the secret S rank who stood up to Suyuk. They assume that this person might end up joining the guild, but also learn about the report of his rejecting it. While they're glazing and talking about him, Hanul adds that he's got some new content for the audience. It's actually hunter-related information, but the viewers aren't as much interested. He decides to pioneer their attention by seeking their suggestions to clear a specific dungeon. They're surprised that he's going to stream the entire raid experience, as that's deemed straight-up unlawful. There's a secrecy agreement for hunters that can't be violated. Instead, Hanul planned to just upload the clearance certificate and then tell the narrative himself. They all assume his narrative is going to be peak. The guilds who are actively trying to hide the secrets of the dungeons will fail because of one broadcaster. One spectator proposes taking on the Mad Dragon's Nest, but then another drops 50,000 won for the Giant's Kitchen dungeon. Then a third viewer dumps 1,000,000 freaking won, urging him to pull off the Queen's legs in the Spider's Forest. The gap between 50,000 and 1,000,000 is enormous, but the gifts are even overwhelming for our boy. He encourages them to calm down and gaze up at the tallest notification. 10 freaking million won have been granted to him, earning the shock and attention of every other observer. Bro's got a whale for a fan, but in actuality, it's the assistant of the sovereign who wants to chat to our kid. Hanul can only wonder where he's being transported for such a big money, so he asks for the viewer's recommendation. The entity responds by advising he journey to the deepest section of the Garden of Meditation. The other viewers believe this request is a death trap, because no one has ever been able to clear it. The Garden of Meditation comprises 3 entire sections: the entry, the lake, and the deepest area. The entry is relatively deemed safe for a hunting ground. The real kicker is the lake in the center, inviting additional levels of risk. Nobody even knows what the deepest area holds, because they couldn't get past the lake. The only individual who managed to get thus far was Suyuk himself, who reached his limits and stopped progressing further. And now, he's being asked for that same assignment, which is unachievable, even in Hanul's own opinion. Viewer 1 adds that he doesn't have to clear the dungeon itself. He is fine with the mission, as long as Hanul reaches the deepest section. This shakes up the difficulty a bit. However, he's even offered further help if Bro ends up clearing the dungeon fully, knowing that it's going to get the streamer killed in the name of content. Admittedly, our youngster recognizes the gravity of the situation, but he's satisfied with only reaching the deepest section and returning back. Then there's the fact that viewer 1 himself wants him to complete the dungeon and even volunteered his backing for it. Hanul really isn't looking forward to this task, but he shouts loudly that he's ready. Let's visit the Hunter Bureau, where the receptionist is taking his request to challenge the Garden of Meditation on a solo mission. After hearing his curiosity and investigating the deepest region, she tells him that it'll be the most risky expedition on his own. Hanul urges her to only process his request, so she lodges him for anything in a week. However, our boy wants her to make clearance sooner. It's not like he has to take anyone on a solo adventure after all. She offers him tomorrow for a spot, something Hanul is happy with. He's expected to come by at 4, and so Hanul leaves, having made his appointment. While he's exiting the building, an unusual duo drops by, competing for his attention for a talk. We have Myung-hoon and So-won, both individual HR team leaders of the Aegis and Samurai Guild, meeting him. Our boy thinks that they must be familiar with his evaluation reset recently. Both Aegis and the Samurai Guild are happy to welcome him aboard. They're actually 2 of Korea's big 3 guilds. They are both interested in supplying considerably more tempting terms than anything Pungbak sought of him. But our lad is truly uninterested in any guild chat and walks away, concentrated on his mission. He doesn't really have any consideration for joining a guild, as it will hold him back. What he needs to prioritize is the dungeon. And speaking of that, Suyuk receives a fresh report from our boy himself on his quest. Hanul expresses his aim to reach the deepest section, the same part that not even Suyuk couldn't reach. That's why he's calling the S-ranker for information. Of course, Suyuk knows that he doesn't have to give up anything until our lad discloses that he's got a hidden means to clear the dungeon. This declaration stuns the vice commander, but our lad tells him that he'll publicly proclaim that he cleared the dungeon with Pungbak's help. This offers an equal motivation to share the information, which is why Suyuk is willing, but he's curious if Hanul actually has a technique to clear this dungeon. Our youngster expresses his confirmation, so the vice leader acts upon another proposition, pressing him to join the guild. Of course, our boy denies immediately. Right when Suyuk tries to claim that he's the only one expressing interest, Hanul adds that both Aegis and Samurai guilds have respectively contacted him too. This knowledge hits the vice leader like a truck, because it merely reinforces that the other 2 leaders are making a move on the fly. Hanul presses on, feeling that Pungbak's proposition has little respect to him. Defeated in the negotiation, Suyuk accepts and makes one point deliberately plain. He doesn't have any information on the deepest area, and that the dungeon structure could have evolved over the course of the year. Hanul is happy with that and makes the best of what he can. He arrives at the appropriate position wearing his glasses, and instantly the men in front of him take note. Kwang-soo announces himself as one of the Bulgul Guild. Our youngster returns the welcome, but the Baldy already knows a crap ton about the kid thanks to the evaluation. He's a stuck-up who hasn't worked with an S rank before and has problem with our boy applying solo. Bro's a sore loser and angrily states that his guild has a job to carry out, thus he's not going to offer any help at all. Feeling no threat at all, Hanel agrees to the setting. Egghead walks away acting like S rank means nothing in a real fight. Even Hanel didn't anticipate these guys to be on their period on the first day. He's lucky to have gotten in, but for dungeons like these, a minimum party size is necessary with a month-long reservation. The party members have waited for a while, and our lad managed to get in on day 1, so they're furious about that. Regardless, he activates his Sage's Eye to infer their ranks. All of them are crap, and won't be able to keep up with our lad in the deeper areas. This means they could be being used for espionage, regardless. Hanel knows he won't be running into them. The bald head turns around to query why he's smirking. Connell tells them he remembers a humorous joke, but the idiots are so insecure that they take it as offense and want to beat him up. In the middle of this, the staff member unlocks the gate for the dungeon raid, inviting crackling green lightning. The hunters are ordered to rapidly proceed, or else the gate won't hold, and it's truly our boy's first time into a true dungeon. Hanul heads inside, curious to see what awaits him, while the system panel reveals basic statistics, such dungeon capacity each raid. Here, the sovereign servant gives him the best of luck with his support, partially changing the scenery of the dungeon. The party members are here, but Egghead senses that something is awry from the outset. He can barely identify this damn place, as it's nothing like the entrance. Bro experiences Vietnam flashbacks, while his mates are inquiring why there's a lake here. The entrance isn't intended to be like this. Some of them even know about what it looks like. It's a first for Hanul, who realizes that the entrance is designed to be an easy clearance. From the facts that So Huyup presented, this version is nothing like the entryway at all. Then our boy realizes something. The system screen officially announces them with a new briefing. Welcome the hunters to the lakeside. The hunters are tearing their hair for an explanation as the system shares the pig mallets massacre. This is their mission, to protect the pig mallets from the hands of their slayers until the night. Traveling this assignment awards traveling through the lake and provides admission to the deepest area. But if they fail, every single challenger will perish. This is a critical drawback. The C rankers are losing it, and they are not ready for this assignment, to the point Kwangsu's guys want him to bail out. But the instant they try to open their status window to bail out of the assignment, these individuals learn they can't resign at all. Egghead has been attempting to escape for a while now, but he's stuck all the same. The current number of pig mallets is 130, with 2 already having been butchered, reducing the number down to 128. Kwangsu is panicking and approaches the local S-rank hunter for an explanation, asking for any ideas on how he could aid them. Our youngster gently states that he doesn't know a thing about what's going on. However, he has information on the lake. His comments fire up Kwangsu's confidence as he asks our boy to fill them in with the knowledge too. They're delighted to assist in any manner they can. Hanul laughs at the irony because these are the same fellas who were berating him before. He makes a condition in order to cooperate with them. First, he'll give what he knows, but they're going to have to follow his orders in exchange until the whole situation is cleared. If they can agree to that request, he's happy to tell it everything. The deal undermines the authority of the guild, as it will allow Hanul to depose their head. But it's not like they have a choice, as the system hammers down another decrease in number for the mallets. Kwangsu knows they're fried if they don't cooperate, so the egghead agrees to the idea, as long as Hanul can take the fall if his scheme self-destructs. But that's an unfair condition, since our boy is already offering a prize. Kwangsu carefully listens and agrees to hear him out. Hanul describes the details of the terrain they're working with. He maps out the exact structure of the lake sector. The big lake lying at the dead center of it streams all over the forest in a web pattern. The egghead is shocked by his vast information sources, but Hanul keeps it simple and explains that he's got a scouting skill. Kwangsu is startled and feels happy because they could never get lost with this guy on their side. Even the layout is in sync with the information Sohyup presented. More accurately, what's happening right now is that our youngster is using the sacred map given to him by Viewer 1. It's a gift from the castle, so he doesn't have to do much of the heavy lifting. The mission is quite basic. They spare the pig mallets from being butchered, but that means locating them is crucial too. They inhabit in the marshes, thus there are 8 total breeding zones to target. From then on, they merely have to dash rapidly before the slayer gets the chance to destroy a zone. Hanul plans to assemble them into a communal area for easier defense. That's basically the start of the strategy, and he wants them to act promptly when the number topples farther down. Even while they're not doing anything, they're losing numbers, and because of that urgency, Kwang-Su's troop blasts away to locate the zones. Though he's interested what the S-rank hunter intends to accomplish, to which Hanwoo answers that he'll handle the pig mallet solo, the guild head leaves him to his business, affording our guy the privacy he's been meaning to have. His purpose is to scout the region using the map of the lake. Apparently there's a hidden mission in this zone with a special prize, and our lad mostly wants to execute that mission. The hunt is ready to begin, but first he wants to figure out two things during the scouting: the hidden objective itself, and then the identities of the slayers slaying the pig mallets. Apparently there are numerous kinds of monsters here, therefore he's gotta know who they are. Spying on a gathering, Hanwoo witnesses a lot of lizard men looking hefty as heck. He's truly astonished and understands that these individuals must be the slaughterers guilty for slaughtering the pig mallets. His strategy just got a whole lot more complicated, because even though the lizard men are only at a D rank level, a massive group of them is a pain in the ass to deal with. Knowing he shouldn't engage in combat, Hanwoo tries to escape when suddenly, two fools waltz in talking garbage about him. The saddest part is that they're both moving in this way, compromising our boy's safety in the process. The big mouth is talking high and powerful, until this man's head actually gets taken clean off his shoulders. One of the monsters lunged right in and slaughtered the human. His head pumps out blood. Watching the ruthless lizard men appear out of nowhere, the other person gets fired up and tries to tackle the monster indiscriminately. His rage-filled hands attack the beast with every punch. Bro's rage has no bounds as he lands the ultimate attack. But here's the astonishing part. None of that did any damage at all. This is because the lizard men collectively have access to a swarm team boost. That same small D-rank monster they had, it experiences a 2-stage evolution and jumps up to B class when they're together. Because of this extreme bonus, the creature rips his arm clean off his body, rendering the person pleading for his life. Then the monster takes its weapon and is ready to administer the deadly blow. But, unexpectedly, the king of Aura himself, Gano, arrives and blocks it. This discussion of all goblins has been convened to even the odds. The C-ranked guy from the Bulgal Guild cannot believe his eyes, that he has just been saved by a poor goblin slave. Hanwoo walks up from behind and reminds the huge guy that he asked them to stay at their allocated locations in the dungeon. The huge guy adds that he simply got lost along the road and somehow ended himself at this region by mistake. Hanwoo tells him to retreat and take care of his wounds while he handles the lizard man alone. He then tells Gano to immediately clear the surrounding beasts. He is already short on time and still needs to uncover a special quest concealed somewhere in the dungeon. Gano moves immediately and ignites Raven's wingbeat. He runs past the lizard men so swiftly that they can barely monitor his movement. The named goblin slave takes down one monster after another before the lizard men even understand what is going on. Meanwhile, Hanwoo stands calmly, watching the action while enjoying as a spectator. Even while the lizards massively outnumber Gano, he knows they have no chance against him. Just then, one of the lizard men seems to use all its brain cells at once. It understands that confronting Hanwoo directly could be their last chance and immediately jumps at him, hoping for a one-shot kill. Hanwoo promptly activates Lord's Afterimage and draws the stats he earned from Count Gular in the previous wave. Getting S-ranked strength for half an hour, he easily knocks the monster aside as if it were nothing. At that moment, Gano had already completed clearing the remaining brain-dead lizards. Hanwoo praises his goblin servant and pats him, even though he finds the whole encounter slightly strange. And as promised, the goblin blushes while the affinity increases by another 10 points. He then sells the mana stones he collected and gets some easy gold. Since this is his first time selling a lizardman stone, the Lord's Castle of Illusion provides him an extra reward. Luckily, once again he scores the jackpot and receives another gacha draw ticket, which he decides he will spin only once the assignment is entirely taken care of. Gano then taps at his wrist, trying to remind Hanwoo that his time restriction is about to run out. Just as Hanwoo starts pondering whether there is any feasible method to deal with the ticking timer, the goblin slave suddenly begins to resemble those greedy goblins obsessed with gold. At that very time, the system shows up with a notification notifying him that he can simply pay 5 gold for every additional 10 minutes if he wants to keep his monster summoned longer. The streamer dude finds this move exceedingly poor of the system, noting how it constantly tries to suck him dry anytime it has the chance. But he also understands he doesn't really have another option available. Before he can ponder more, he hears a peculiar rumbling noise, and suddenly, a vast herd of pig mallets starts galloping directly for him. Sweat slowly trickles down his face as he wonders how he is expected to control such a large gathering of what should be simple targets. Once again, Gano steps in to save the day by talking directly with the pig mallets. The goblin gets their attention and enthusiastically praises his master, telling them how much Hunnel sincerely wants to protect and save them. The pig mallets promptly burst into tears after hearing the emotive speech and rush toward Hunnel, urgently attempting to demonstrate their thanks. Just like that, Hunnel finds himself able to guide the creatures like a shepherd guiding his sheep. He continues patrolling the area alongside his goblin and keeps destroying every type of lizard man that tries to approach them. However, when he subsequently attempts to sell the mana stones again, the system abruptly flashes a red alert, informing him that the castle's funds have been entirely drained and that he will not be able to sell or gather any more stones until more funds are restored. It seems that Hunnel has already reached the unit limit for each kind of lizardman he may command. He never thought that the castle would actually run out of gold. Now that he learns there is a severe cap on how many monsters he may control, he chooses to quit chasing the lizardman kinds, since this would be meaningless for his time. He then counts the pig mallets he personally rescued, getting it around 60, and the system alerts him that a total of 70 have been saved overall. From that amount, it seems evident that the entire Bogle Guild managed to secure only 10 on their own. All of a sudden, something moves within the pig mallets, and they begin acting erratically. The so-called easy targets suddenly start running in tandem, leading every player inside the dungeon into the middle of the lake. The dungeon system responds with an announcement, saying that the slaughterers have quit pursuing the pig mallets, and that night has officially fallen. They are congratulated for successfully defending the easy targets from the slayers. Once the total number of pig mallets saved has reached 70, a hidden objective is also completed at the same time. By now, the members of the Bogle Guild are fully at their breaking point, shouting at the dungeon to just get them out of this nightmare. However, just as everyone feels it is finally finished, a fresh message emerges and informs them that a trial of medication is about to begin. A large flood of shimmering water suddenly surges toward everyone, and just when they feel they are finished, the pig mallets they spared grow serious and leap forward to shield them. Hunnel and Gano stay standing there, apparently stunned by the rapid turn of events. The system informs them that the pig mallets they shielded from their predators are now repaying the favor as a sign of appreciation. Hunnel can hardly believe that these easy targets actually carry such latent potential. At that point, it suddenly becomes apparent why they were assigned the responsibility of defending them in the first place. He quietly wonders whether saving more would make one more safer. To test his assumption, Hunnel takes a brief check at the others, observing that most of them had barely managed to save 1 or 2 pig mallets each. The leader of Bogle, Kwang, is barely holding on, and the pig mallet beside him seems like it is on the verge of breathing its last. The rest of the Bogle members appear to be in a similar position, which makes Hunnel really anxious about their status. He hurriedly tries to come up with a means to save all of them, and right then, the system throws out another notification. It eventually unveils the hidden mission that Hunnel has been hunting for all these time. To finish it, he must find and conceal the true source behind this trial. On top of that, he learns that if he overcomes the monster responsible for triggering this occurrence, the trial will quickly terminate instead of lasting the full 10-minute time restriction. Hunnel wastes no time, steadies himself, and wears his spectacles. He activates his Sage's Eye talent and promptly identifies a presence exactly where the system suggested. Upon focusing more, he confirms that it is a named monster called Zen Karuk, a highly intelligent creature boasting frightening skills such as Cataclysmic Wave and Storm. The discovery makes him concerned because named monsters are regarded as exceptional beings with unique skills peculiar to them. Even yet, he forced himself to relax down, reminding himself that a clandestine mission was never going to be simple. When Gano grows obviously excited and prepared to charge at the monster waiting behind the big wave, Hunnel stops him and declares that he will only be spectating this battle. He explains that without any water resistance, Gano would be at grave risk inside the lake, since the battleground would constitute a serious threat to him. Hunnel then opens his monster summoning shop with the goal of recruiting a new monster to address the situation. From the Lord's List trade, he chose an ogre berserker, mainly because it possesses innate resistance to water. However, a fresh concern quickly appears in his thoughts, since unlike Gano, the ogre has no equipped items, which means it would most certainly lose against a named monster of Zenkaruk's caliber. Realizing that he needs something to increase the ogre's stats, Hanel takes out his premium gacha ticket despite its historically poor success rate and chooses to use it. He thinks that the draw will offer him an item capable of helping the ogre stand a meaningful chance against Zenkaruk. The ticket activates, and a golden light blasts out, pushing Hanel's eyes wide open once again. He feels a burst of joy upon realizing that it is an S-ranked item, although that excitement rapidly turns into perplexity because the item does not appear to be something very useful in fighting. Meanwhile, the water stream continues to get stronger, leaving him with no real choice than to summon the ogre and equip it with the equipment he just got. The moment he places the object on the ogre, the creature immediately collapses to the ground. At the same time, Hanel hears a desperate scream from one of the Bogle members who is close to drowning, so he runs over to rescue without hesitation. Disappointment flashes across his face as he grits his teeth, understanding that he might have to handle everything on his own now. On top of that, his Lord's afterimage only has 12 minutes remaining, after which he will revert back to being an E-rank nobody. Even yet, he chooses to prioritize saving the others. However, the strain begins to show as he struggles despite his temporarily superior stats. Just when his grip starts to waver, and he is on the verge of letting go of the tree he is clutching onto, the powerful current suddenly begins to weaken. When he looks forward, he sees the ogre standing solidly in the water, wearing what looks like a Harry Potter cap. The ogre speaks in a heroic tone and asks his lord whether he has been hurt anywhere. It formally greets Hanel and introduces itself as his humble servant, behaving in a manner that looks nothing like what anyone would anticipate from an ogre. Hanel finds himself bewildered, for from his perspective all he had done was place an S-rank item, the Archmage Gandorf's hat, onto the ogre's head. The artifact was purportedly created to boost intelligence-related traits, theoretically changing even an idiot into a genius. However, it never once crossed his mind that boosting an ogre's brain to such an extreme degree could generate repercussions this astounding. Still caught in his astonishment, Hanel asks his servant, asking how it is even possible for him to enunciate words so clearly and maintain a normal conversation. In answer, the ogre proudly flexes his muscles and says with clear delight that the cap placed to him by his lord has altered his being, turning him into an entirely new kind of an ogre. Following this declaration, the ogre respectfully lowers himself into a deep bow before Hanel and humbly demands that his master issue an order. Hanel says that before delivering any direct directives, there is something he wishes to clear. The ogre immediately agrees without hesitation. Hanel then inquires whether the creature is now capable of wielding magic, to which the ogre proudly responds with a yes, explaining how he just imbued his log with it. Hearing this explanation fills Hanel with enthusiasm, as the circumstances finally look to be working in his favor. Seizing the momentum, he tells the ogre to advance directly through the severe storm, while he himself follows closely after. Without delay, the hat-wearing ogre begins violently pushing his way through the surging flood. Hanel even gives the ogre the name Odolf, and informs him that he is dependent on him. The instant he hears his new name, Odolf's cheeks get scarlet, and tears begin to pour from his eyes. Deeply affected and filled with determination, he shouts that he will give everything he has, and even sacrifice himself to return this honor. Odolf then surges ahead into the steam, clearing the route, and Hanel feels confident that they will arrive soon. This quick alteration makes Zenkaruk anxious, as he thinks that someone has managed to outsmart his magic. Although he feels that whoever did this cannot be an ordinary wizard, he nevertheless maintains sure that breaking past his barrier will not be easy. Meanwhile, Odolf reaches the barrier and is promptly stopped by it. He alerts Hanel about the blockage, and Hanel advises him to keep striking the same point over and over, hoping that repeated force in one region could eventually shatter it. The ogre starts explaining, using reasoning and mathematics, why this multi-layered formula barrier cannot be destroyed. But Hanel interrupts him and encourages him to quit overthinking and just crush it with physical power instead of depending on magic alone. Even though it makes no sense to him, the servant respectfully accepts the instruction and begins striking the barrier fiercely, swinging as if he were playing a baseball match. Zenkaruk feels more nervous as he observes the barrier diminishing, but he keeps calm, assuming that a simple ogre cannot possibly defeat his cataclysmic wave. He thinks it is impossible for anyone to learn both strength and magic simultaneously. And while he continues to preach about how unbreakable the barrier is, it unexpectedly shatters. This absolutely surprises the lizard Zenkuruk. He tells himself that only an ogre who is also a wizard could do anything like this, which should be practically impossible. Looking at the ogre wearing a mage's cap, he cannot believe that his magic seal has been broken. He starts wondering if the ogre is indeed an ogre shaman. When Hanel asks the lizard if he is Zenkuruk, the creature does not respond. Instead, he focuses exclusively on fighting the enemies in front of him. He figures that the ogre shaman must have drained a lot of mana, and that this will give him the advantage against a weakened foe. Just as the lizard is about to perform a tremendous assault that might kill anyone quickly, Hanel urges Odolph to try a long-range spell to halt it. Hanel expected a fireball or something similar, followed by a rush at the opponent, but the ogre just throws the log towards Zenkuruk. The lizard does not see that a real log is coming at him, and arrogantly states that he has already won, insisting that no magic can shatter his barrier, and that he had anticipated this attack. However, when the log finally hits, all of the lizard man's confidence shatters instantaneously like delicate glass, and he drops defeated on the spot. Hanel looks to his enormous servant and observes that the spell he used only looked like a log being hurled, and Odolph quickly apologizes, claiming that he has not yet learned any real spells. The scene then turns to the Pungbak Guild offices, where the leader is being urged to hire the newly awakened S-ranked hunter, Hanel, fast, before their rivals get the chance to grab him up. Despite their persistence, he sees no reason to seek some measly S-ranked hunter when he already has so many to spare. Back in the dungeon, Zenkuruk has been effectively defeated. Odolph carefully takes up the monostone and carries it over to Hanel. Hanel praises the huge guy for his hard work, but Odolph humbly argues that it was only possible because of his master's supervision and encouragement. After they finish exchanging words of acknowledgement and squabbling about who gets the credit, Hanel sells the special soul stone to the castle. The castle then computes the benefits, which include a special zone development permit, another gacha ticket, and a little quantity of gold, somewhat decreased due to the paucity of finances in the castle. Furthermore, Hanel now obtains the ability to employ Zenkuruk during his wave defenses. He chooses to leave examining the awards for later and heads back for the time being. When he returns, he finds only the blue-haired female hunter from the Bulgul Guild, conscious. She instantly asks whether he has succeeded to save them all, and thanks him gratefully for his efforts. Hanel inquires about the rest of her guild members, and she informs him that they are all alive and have begun to receive adequate treatment. Just then, the leader Kwang appears and requests to have a chat with Hanel. The guy almost barges at him as if he is about to strike him. Then unexpectedly he drops to his knees and thanks Hanel on behalf of his guild for saving everyone. He apologizes for how he handled Hanel when they initially entered the dungeon. Hanel finds it amazing because he never anticipated the brainless musclehead to actually be capable of apologizing. He gives his hand to pull Kwang up and advises him to get back on his feet and care after his guildmates who still need him. The two shake hands, and Kwang's eyes fill with tears as he swears to remember this debt and repay it someday. The system then alerts them that the trial of the meditation has been successfully surmounted and provides them the choice to either stay back or go to the deeper sections. Unconscious hunters are sent back automatically, while all others are given the chance to select. When Kwang hears that Hanel plans to stay, he tries his hardest to encourage him to flee for now, assuring him that they will assist him recuperate and return after getting properly equipped. However, when Hanel shows Kwang his monsters and explains how he already has loyal allies to back him up, Kwang feels afraid and finally realizes why Hanel still wants to continue, ceasing his attempts to persuade him further. All of them express their gratitude to Hanel and leave, while our kid stays behind to continue onward and complete the dungeon, a feat that no one else has ever performed. Once he has also finished the hidden assignment, the dungeon system informs Hanel that he will be granted a special prize in addition to the usual ones he is receiving. The scene then changes back to Choi Kang, who is still being convinced to hire the new S-ranker. The vice head Pyo Myung-hoon, together with his sister, seeks to explain why their top guild should bring him on board. The leader, however, carries on babbling that they themselves are in a difficult place, and anyway, since the S-ranker is still formally registered as B-ranked in the guild, he does not view this as necessary. Just then, he receives a message that a red pattern dungeon has been spotted, indicating a higher possibility for a dungeon breach to occur. When he realizes that the destination is the Garden of Meditation, which is the same location where Hanul has gone, the leader decides to pay it a visit. A few hours later, the guild leader, together with his minions, arrives at the dungeon site and inquires about the condition. The dungeon force at the spot explains that the dungeon has switched into a red pattern one. They add that they have already evacuated the neighboring population and that they would be meeting the Pungbok Guild's assistants to address any crises that occur. Myung-hoon shouts, asking about the hunters inside, upon which the man in the black suit replies that 6 hunters have managed to make it out, but 1 hunter has entered the darkest portion of the dungeon. Right thereafter, the guild head of Aegis, Ma Dong, and the leader of the Samurai Guild, Samurai, also come. All of them are very curious, as this is the first time a single hunter has been able to reach the deepest area of this dungeon. They are baffled as to who could be capable of performing such a feat, until the man in the black suit says that they have been informed that the identity of the person is Hanul.